Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. Guys, if you want to go get some nice crypto merch to support the channel, go check out tokenizedthreads.com. There's going to be a link down in the description below. We just released a full new collection. If you guys do want to go check that out, you guys are more than welcome to. But with that being said, we actually are now starting to see a nice green day for once around these markets. And this is actually on the big Black Monday fear porn, right? Because everyone thought that today was going to be a massive bearish event. Now, are we getting ahead of ourselves and saying, that's it, the bottom's in, we're about to go crazy? No, we're not. But this is a very good start. It's a very good start, and it's very good to start to see the markets stabilize a bit. We still have a lot of work to do, and I'm going to outline what exactly we need to see going forward to actually avoid a further crash. But if we actually look at the overall market today, sitting around roughly $2.5 trillion, nothing too crazy. Bitcoin still under 80K. It did regain 80K slightly for a little bit of time there. It was pretty much short lasted. But, you know, if we actually look at what's going on here, XRP down below $1.90, still trying to find a little bit of momentum to really kind of regain that $2 plus support zone. But most of the market is still down in terms of like altcoins. If we look at the top gainers and losers over the last 7 days, there is not a lot of green across the board for the top 100. In fact, it's a lot of red. So like I said, we have a lot to do before we can get ahead of ourselves and even flip bullish again because of how down a lot of altcoins actually are and have been as well over the last couple weeks. So, you know, while we do wait for things to actually turn bullish, we could still look for bullish signals or indicators that are telling us that the markets are going to rebound in a big way. One altcoin that I will say is shining today is HBAR. HBAR is up about 10%. It did start to regain a little bit of traction around like 15 cents. I'm not dead set on this being the bottom just yet for altcoins and for the market, simply because of how high Bitcoin dominance still is. Like I said, we still have a lot of work to do here, even on Bitcoin's end, because we're still under 80K, which I will address here in a second. But let's actually look at the warning signs, right? So we were getting warned over the weekend that, you know, Monday could be Black Monday all over again. Jim Cramer's Black Monday prediction met with market stability and social media skepticism. So Jim Cramer, a well-known financial analyst, predicted a severe stock market crash akin to the 1987 Black Monday for a specific trading day. However, contrary to his forecast, the Nasdaq ended the day with a slight increase, while the S&P 500 and Dow Jones saw minor declines. This discrepancy between prediction and reality led to widespread online commentary, with many dubbing the day Green Monday due to the unexpected market performance. Discussions online highlighted the inaccuracy of Cramer's prediction, of course, with some humorously suggesting that his forecast might inversely predict market movements. Now, we already know that that is the case, but you know, what's crazy about this is I did warn you guys over the weekend that we will most likely have a nice impulsive move on Monday, and I don't believe that it's going to be that bearish. Now, in terms of the S&P 500, this is what the S&P 500 does look like. Looking at this on the 3-week chart, you know, trends since going all the way back to about December of 2022, the bear market lows of crypto, essentially, we are looking pretty good here. Now, you could draw this two different ways if you really wanted to. You could draw it like this, going off of some of these other candle bodies here and say, all right, well, we lost this completely, so that means that we're still bearish. Or you can go off of, you know, candle wicks here like that. Again, I like to go off of where the major impulsive move retested the trend line, and then we start to impulse off of that, and we just held up throughout the, you know, 2023 cycle, 2024 cycle as well. And now, you know, we're still holding on to this. You could also draw it going all the way back to March of 2020 if you really wanted to go all the way back into the macro. And again, you could draw this, you know, multiple ways. You could draw it like this, and you could say, all right, well, going off of the bear market lows of 2022, we have a nice little wick here, slight wick below it. We already have the wick below it here in terms of like the March candle in the last 3 weeks. This is one way to draw this if you really wanted to. But we are on the 3-week chart here, which means we have about almost 10 days until this actually does officially close out. If this starts to close significantly higher than like some previous highs, like going all the way back to like March and February of 2024. So if we close above this level here, I do think that we are in for some bullish momentum to pick up towards the end of this month into, of course, May. But it's not just the S&P 500 that have been maintaining the trend. I've been looking at this in terms of like the NASDAQ, for an example. This is on the 3-week as well. Now this goes all the way back to the 2020 lows. So far, perfect, trend being retested and holding up. Also, the Dow Jones, very similar price action going all the way back to March of 2020. These charts are telling us that we shouldn't be panicking right now. In fact, we should not be concerned at all on price action, which is why I do think that a lot of the bearish momentum around this space has been on over-exaggerated news headlines. Like, for an example, the Jim Cramer Black Monday news. I think everyone was overreacting to this. They started to sell some positions. They started to load up on some shorts, maybe even, put options. And I think that that's why we're starting to see a little bit of a squeeze happening here. Now, do I think that this could quickly accelerate into a much larger squeeze? 100%. In fact, we've seen it many times over. I think that, a good example here is Solana. If we actually go and look at Solana, and I remember this specifically because it was a huge time in the market where a lot of people were saying like, all right, Solana's dead. It's done because of FTX. It was during 2022, right? Leading into January, everyone was short Solana. And what ended up happening was a big squeeze. And it squeezed all the way to about roughly $30 or so. It was like $26, it was like 26 bucks exact. But it continued, right? We continued to chop a little bit, throughout the year. And then, of course, into 2024 is when we started to go absolutely parabolic back over $100 plus. And of course, this led to us hitting a high of like 260 bucks. But again, everyone was short Solana back in the bottom of the bear market just to get squeezed completely. And I do think that that will happen again here while everyone is still acting impulsively against all of the tariff discussions and the headlines. I keep seeing a lot of people panicking even now. Like, for an example, we have BlackRock saying that we are probably in a recession right now. Since when will BlackRock tell us the truth? They never will. Which means I don't think that we are in a recession at this current point in time, but I do think that we're getting there. And even if we are in a recession, we're probably about to, get out of a recession and we're starting to bounce back, if anything. And I think that that's why I really don't pay attention too much to BlackRock and what these big players tell us. Now, what's the most logical idea here in terms of like a recession? I think that we are nearing one because of the fact that by 2026, I still think that we're going to have a lot of issues around the banking sector. I think that the debt that we are currently, packing on, I think that that's going to hit very unsustainable levels because so far we've been getting very close to the tax revenue no longer covering the interest payments on our debt. And once that does happen, I do think that we start to see things break in a big way, which is why I do think that the recession fears right now are not, anything to be concerned about. I think that eventually, yes, they will be a big concern, but in 2025, I don't think that we should be concerned at all. But on top of this, everyone has been worried about the tariffs. And if we look at this, we already have 70 countries now reaching out to the president to negotiate new trade deals. Now, this is coming from Secretary DCENT. We don't know how true this is. We don't know if they're just kind of selling us on this or not. But if this is, true, then I do think that we're probably going to start to see a big bounce in the market. And I think that the relief rally will most likely happen yet again. So we'll have to wait and see on this and see what happens throughout the week. I think that we'll probably see a lot more announcements around this and a little bit more clarity on this as well throughout the week, but we just have to wait on it. Right now, we don't really have everything in front of us because a lot of it is unknown to the public just right now. But outside of this, the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of influencers, this one actually, The Modern Investor, I'm aware of his videos, makes great content. He's now talking about a 40K Bitcoin. We have, if this is real, we're about to see a 40K Bitcoin, everyone. Hold on tight. It's going to get disastrous. Now, this is coming from Donald Trump via Truth Social. We have yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs on 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs. Non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation. Despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the US by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs over and above those initially set. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, So again, this is today, tomorrow, however you want to word it. The United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with the US will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries which have also requested meetings will begin taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, again, we don't know what's going to happen because, if this is the case, do I think that the markets are going to react in a very significant bearish way? It's definitely possible, but we got to think about the big picture here. We got to take a step back and look at the fact that over 70 plus countries are now reaching out, as we are hearing, we're taking their word for it, regarding negotiating new trade deals. This is a big deal, and it kind of, in my opinion, overthrows this China news. Do I think that this is bearish? 100%. Do I think that this is good? No. But I do think that, we're starting to see a bit of a shift around the tariff discussions. I think that we're starting to see the deals being made. We'll have to see what happens throughout the week. We definitely have to pay attention to today because, the next 24 hours could change significantly. But, right now I'm looking at a big bounce across the board. And that does also mean XRP. I've been seeing a lot of people calling for much deeper price action on XRP. And is it possible? 100%. I'm looking at this on the 3-week. We have about 12 days, almost 13 days on this chart. This goes all the way back here to March 2020, June of 2020 as well, and even the significant wick from the SEC lawsuit. So far, this has been holding up on this trend line. Now, could we draw this, multiple ways? We technically could, but I do like this overall chart here on how it is set up. And it's not because it looks perfect. I'm just saying that it has multiple taps here, which, does make it a very significant trend line to follow. Now, could we draw this differently? Could we, go off of the bottom wick here and do something like this? Yeah, we could. But I don't think that that is the most accurate way to actually draw this. Maybe going off of the bottom trend here of the candles going back to March of 2020, we could technically draw it like that. It would look something similar to this. Or we could even go off of, both the candle bodies of, March of 2020 and also even January of 2021. And if that's the case, it would look something like this, where the lower price action here would be around like $1.30, $1.40. Is that possible? 100%. It definitely is. But I more so like to see how the markets react to this trend line throughout the week. So far, this is what I'm focused on. I think that we might be at the bottom. I think that we might have, seen the bottom as well. But there could be a little bit more chop here throughout the markets as we start to see the tariff discussions kind of cool off a little bit, and as we do start to see those deals morph into reality through announcements coming from, of course, the president. We'll have to watch, wait, and see on that. But in terms of Bitcoin on the 3-week, going all the way back to March 2020 as well, Bitcoin looks pretty good here. But the reason why I do think that we could see a little bit more chop is because I do think that Bitcoin could retest this lower trend line. And that would be in the next 12, 13 days of about 68.7K. The reason why I think that this is possible is because on the 3-week, that would align perfectly with retesting the previous highs, turning it into support, and then continuing its upward path. And that would kind of look like this, where we do kind of just range and chop to the upside and hit 150, 160K for this cycle to top out officially. Now we'll have to see what happens here. But, again, I think that we're close to the bottom here. I don't think that, I don't think that we should be concerned. I don't think that we should act impulsively. I don't think that we should overreact to any headline articles. Everyone is saying recession. Typically, we bounce from here, in my opinion, because it's very similar to the Jim Cramer news. It's very similar to, any overreaction in the past as well. So, in my opinion, I think that we're close to it, or at the bottom right now for the entire market, and also even for stocks as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.